Yeah, so for us, the big one right now is fundraising. So we're raising 50 million to get started with all of this, which is, for those who have worked with funds, that's actually pretty small, and it's interesting having conversations around that because as a 25-year-old, $50 million sounds like a lot of money to me.
Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I'm excited because it's always good to talk to companies that are in the real stages of working through those early stages. And today I'm excited about talking about the business of carbon, and I'm excited about that. So let's just jump into it. Welcome my guest, Sam, to the show. How are you, Sam?
Hey, I'm doing great. Super excited to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So Sam, tell us a little bit about your professional background before carbon.
Yeah, so I'm Sam Martinez, based here in Atlanta. I'm born and raised here. Started my career in the Big Four in management consulting, doing strategy and operations, and really formatting PowerPoints more than anything. And then decided I wanted to go try and save the world like a crazy millennial. So got plugged into an awesome social impact accelerator in Atlanta called Goody Nation. I'm actually wearing a Goody shirt today, but where we helped underserved founders from different backgrounds launch impact startups, and learned a lot there. And then got plugged in with a new impact holding company called Carbon about a year ago. And now we're trying to accelerate social impact with working with proven solutions there.
Awesome. Now, something you mentioned that I think was very, very hilarious. Like you said, you went into the Big Four consulting, and what was your expectation of what it was going to be like versus the PowerPoints?
Yeah, I mean, I knew there'd be PowerPoints going in. I think, you think I started like a lot of people in the finance track in undergrad looking at banking and then heard how scary that was and thought consulting was a happy medium where you still hustle, meet cool people, except you get to travel a bunch. I didn't realize that I worked close to banking hours as someone that was better in Excel than PowerPoint actually. So I spent most of my time either in the conference room at the client or in the hotel, finishing up whatever we didn't get done in the conference room. So I mean, I think it was definitely, you learn a lot though. Like I'm thankful, I'll make fun of it a lot, but you learn a lot, especially on the internal politics side. I mean, there's a ton, you get type A plus networkers and you really learn how to gain influence and, get first to cool projects and things like that. And you get to learn about a lot of industries really quickly and have access to a ton of really, really helpful subject matter on the industry leaders across the board because a Big Four company just touches so much of the Fortune 500. So it was great. I think it was one of those deals I started looking down the line though. And I think you see a transformation happen where people become more materialistic and a little bit different values than I wanted as you pay your dues too long there. So that's part of why I think I got out about the right time.
Now, how did you find, taking your skills you learned there and then segueing into kind of what you're doing now or helping you do what you do now?
Yeah, I think it was a lot about efficiency, honestly, and really understanding how to build authentic relationships quickly and understand how to create value for people. Because especially the impact space is growing quickly, but even a few years ago, coming out of undergrad, I think there's a lot more people that wanted to do stuff that were my age than there were positions. So I had to be really tactical and figuring out who needed help and how I could help them. I think the consulting background helped me understand how to even look for that and then know how to quickly fake like I knew enough to get into the door essentially. So it was a huge help. And I think the brand, I'm someone that kind of doesn't take things too serious and is pretty laid back. So I think the Big Four brand helped show that, I wasn't just some crazy person and had some material behind the facade.
Awesome, awesome. So, talking before, like I said, we started the interview. One of the things that you mentioned about it is just with the growth of managing, the intern program, and I think that's one of those very real challenges that a lot of businesses face when they're going through that growth stage of how are you finding that experience? What are some of the learning lessons you're figuring out there?
Oh, it's been a blast. We've got, so for background, we have about 25 interns, a mix of full-time and part-time for the summer. What's really cool is actually we have a group of part-time interns that have big Fortune 500 corporate internships and just, they want impact experience so badly, they're volunteering to do this on the side with their
Wow.
night weekends. So and they've been killing it. I mean, it's really cool seeing people this passionate about it and gives you a little hope for humanity. But I think it's definitely been a learning experience. You know, it's kind of I joke that's visually impaired leading the blind when I'm trying to guide them on things, but I think you learn a lot about efficiency there as well. Just for me, it's really just trying to like give them everything they need to own things. So there's a lot of silos and different information with all the projects we have going on at Carbon. So just making sure there's just alignment on all the different contexts and connecting them to the people that they need to. Was taking some discipline on my end to stay on top of those emails and calls, but yeah, and then it's really just trusting them to own things. You know, it's giving them what they need and get out of the way kind of deal. Is kind of how I've been running with it. It's been going well so far. I've been really thankful for all of them to support us this summer.
And when it comes down to, I guess you say, social based initiatives and missions, what type of, I guess you say, advice or thoughts do you give to people that get very excited about, hey, I want to make an impact, but then also having to balance in the very real responsibility and task of actually running an organization?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's been interesting. I'm biased because we're a for-profit social enterprise, and I think social enterprises are a really interesting way that's more sustainable to do things going forward versus your traditional nonprofit model where and not to throw shade at nonprofits, I think there's some really awesome people doing great stuff there. But a lot of times you see some broken business models and people just having to burn money through donations every year, and you get really dependent on those groups. So having a more sustainable business model is key, and finding a way to do that, even if it's not 100% there, is huge. So I think that social enterprises are something I'm very biased towards. And then, yeah, I think there's so many people within this space trying to solve it. Like it doesn't matter what social issue you look for now. There's at least 10 organizations working on it. So rather than reinventing the wheel, I think it's really important to go figure out how to plug into what's already out there and kind of 10x what's there rather than starting from zero.
Okay, awesome. So let's talk a little bit about Carbon, a little bit more about what they do and kind of the products and services that Carbon actually produces.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, to get really into the weeds, we probably need the full hour. But we're a new impact holding company that's all about taking proven and profitable business models that are helping people in education, women's empowerment, and resource efficiency in parts of the world, and accelerating their scaling to other places through our team support with management, building out local pipelines of talent in these new markets, and then movement creation. So working with influencers and other groups to really encourage increased adoption in these new markets. So for example, there's an education company we're working with that's really awesome K through 8 math and artificial intelligence to make tutoring much more affordable. So we're helping them. They've been killing it in the commercial segment in the US. So we're actually helping them take that to low income markets now through augmenting the model a little bit, building out local partnerships through our team's network, and then bring in some influencers to help tell the story as well. And we'll actually invest some money. We're in the middle of fundraising, but we'll put some money into some carbon copies, kind of like franchises, to launch this in different markets in the U.S.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, how did you guys go about developing those partnerships there? Like, what was that process like?
Oh, I think a lot of it's coming in with just our team. I probably have the shortest resume, or definitely have the shortest resume of the core team as of now. As the first non-founder, I kind of made up my own job description, which is its own story. Just so the team, Shane, he came from the venture capital world and was awesome there for 20 years, really working with early stage startups and built a whole network there for deal flow. Ratan and Gobi were both senior leaders in large corporations, so they have very strong networks just from climbing the ladder there. And then I, at least with energy and working impact, have built a pretty strong network, especially on the youth side. So we have, I guess, individually a strong network, and now we're pulling that together and tactically reaching out to those groups that fill the gaps and where we don't have networks yet. But yeah, it's been nice. Where I think we're second connects to most of the people we need to get to if we're not first.
Awesome,
So I
awesome.
think yeah.
So when you think about the future or the goal, or I say the next goal for Carbon, how would you kind of describe like, hey, this is what the organization is working towards?
Yeah, so for us, the big one right now is fundraising. So we're raising 50 million to get started with all of this, which is, for those who have worked with funds, that's actually pretty small. And it's interesting. having conversations around that, because as a 25-year-old, $50 million sounds like a lot of money to me. But to really be able to do this, I think that's the big step right now. So we're rounding out the team. We have an initial portfolio in those three pillars I mentioned: education, resource efficiency, and women's empowerment. So we're rounding out the portfolio a little more now that we have those initial companies. I think we just brought on one managing partner. We have maybe one or two more we want to add to really do this right. And then just fundraising, so that we can go write checks to execute on the portfolio we started lining up. And we purposely kind of lagged on that, making sure we have the model exactly how we want it before we start owing investors and needing to actually go execute all the time on it.
Gotcha. Now, where can people find you guys online or on social media to kind of follow the story of, what's Carbon up to?
Yeah, for sure. So Carbon Group Global, on Facebook and LinkedIn. And then on Instagram, it's at Carbon Economies. And then you can find me on The Asian Martinez, because I'm a quarter Japanese, but actually Hispanic. So I'm on Instagram there. And then Sam Martinez, if you just look up Carbon, you should find me on LinkedIn as well.
Gotcha. Now, two questions I like to ask before I wrap up the interview. The first one is, were there any unique challenges that you experienced in the process of building this business up that you were like, when you hit that, you're like, oh, we got to figure out a way to solve this, or this is going to stop us from moving forward?
Oh, I mean, that's another hour there. No, I think for us, it's really, we have to be really disciplined about trying not to boil the ocean, because we're attacking a broad range of issues, and they're really interrelated. So trying to employ women in the education and water solutions, trying to be resource efficient in the education solution, things like that. But you can quickly get buried, especially with a lean team early on. So I think it's just an ongoing battle of, we meet cool people and cool opportunities, but then drawing it back and realizing what's executable in the next couple of weeks or couple months. Which is something I'm really learning now, especially in an earlier part of my career, because shiny new things are always attractive. So I think, it's really about just staying disciplined is the biggest thing, and kind of the lean startup mindset of, how do we get to B, and then we'll figure out how to get to C from there.
Gotcha. And then the last question I like to ask every guest that comes on, I mean, when you think about, your journey thus far, what has been one lesson that you have learned that you would say like, wow, this lesson, I think all entrepreneurs need to know this, if no matter what they're doing, if they're going to be successful?
That's a good question. Try to boil it down to one. I mean, and without being like repetitive, that's the key. I'm trying to think of something unique. I mean, honestly, I think being really conscious in the team you build and the people you surround yourself for advisors and investors is so critical. I think a lot of times you get caught in this mindset of, we just want the first money, the first person that says they're down kind of deal. And that can be really toxic later on. And it's a lot easier it's like how it's easier to build good habits and break old bad ones. So I think that's a big one, is an understanding that. And then even, I think a lot of times your mindset with investors and other groups is to kind of embellish and show the better version of how things are. I think being really candid and honest and having them co-build with you is key. And if they're not in with the vision and don't buy into the bigger picture, then you don't want to be tied to that person and essentially married to them long term. So that's, I guess, just be candid and really think about who you surround yourself with.
No, I think that is an excellent point, because I know even from my experience of working with startups, of helping raise capital, that's one of the things that I always let people know when I'm working with a client about, hey, you do realize when you take their money, it means they're going to have some say in management decisions. So if they don't agree with your vision, this is not going to look good for the two of you down the road.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the small extra advice is, if you're a client of Trails, don't say you're going to capture 80% of the market and then say it's in the financial models. So the one I'd add on is the second.
I think that's excellent advice.
Try and save you a couple headaches if we can.
Awesome. Well, Sam, thank you for coming on to talk about what you and the Carbon team are doing, and the mission that you guys have. And thanks for sharing your insight and your wisdom. We'll definitely share the one pager so people can find you guys and follow what you're up to next. And see the continued success that you guys are having.
Yeah, definitely appreciate you having me. It's been great talking through this stuff, and then we'll have to link up whenever the stuff ends and I can make it to Charlotte again. So we'll catch up in person, maybe 2021 when life's more normal. But at some point we'll make it happen.
Thanks for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, be sure to click the subscribe button and follow us on all social media platforms as the Business Talk Library.